Hello and welcome to this video, which is a review of the book you can see before you, which is The Way into Faerie by Rae Beth. And it's taken me at least 3 weeks to make this video because I just compile loads of notes beforehand and I'm going to have to refer to them because this is a review and there's lots to say rather than me just going into one of my usual kind of waffling off things. So in this video there is going to be plentiful shufflings of paper and moving about of the camera. It is one of my usual low-tech affairs. I do hope one day that I can make an arrangement so that things can be a bit more professional, but for now it's going to be typically me, and I hope you will bear with me and listen to what I'm saying rather than what I'm doing, i.e. shuffling and moving the camera about. So without further ado, let us begin. I'm just going to read a small amount from the back cover before I move this book out of the way. It is the middle section of this book, which is incidentally published by Robert Hale, halebooks.com at $9.99. In this book, Rae Beth suggests ways in which we can understand otherworldly realities without abandoning common sense. Drawing upon her knowledge of traditional fairy lore, she shows how fae perceptions and psychic skills can serve and enhance life. I shall be coming back to the book, but for now I'm just going to focus on this while I refer to my copious notes. Okay, so firstly, I'm not doing this review because Rae is a friend, which I'm very glad to say that she is, and not because I'm being paid for it, but because this is an excellent work and it is very beneficial at whatever level you choose to take it. You certainly don't have to believe in what Rae says to appreciate this book, which is very poetic, and the writing is, as ever with Rae, beautiful. And it can inspire us as well as guide us. It offers an opportunity to experience another level of reality, as well as a different way of seeing or being, if we open ourselves up to that. Whether it resonates deeply with us or not, and I think it will, with the people that are viewing my videos, I think it will resonate with you. It certainly shares something heartfelt and honest, which are two things that are very important, I'm sure you'll agree. Like all Rae's work, it's green-spirited, it's lyrical, and it's profoundly authentic as well as being authentically profound. And it's also, as with all Rae's work, it's very well crafted and well researched, and it blends her personal experience with traditional wisdom. Now, this book is slightly different to her others because it contains the musings of a hypothetical character who she's called Mrs. Eldridge. And the name Eldridge, I presume, is based on the word eldritch, which means, as I'm sure you know, otherworldly or uncanny and strange. And Rae allows Mrs. Eldridge to show us what it's like to be a fairy soul or a fae type living today. Mrs. Eldridge is an extraordinary, ordinary modern person, a bit like the people in the Everyday Enchantment Tarot, but she's also one of the other kind. So she walks in this world, but she's not strictly of this world. In this, we could say that she is a hedgewitch or an edgewitch, and as you will probably know, Rae's other work has been mostly about being a hedgewitch. Although in this book, unlike the other work, it's not strictly about hedgewitchery. It is, as Rae says, for those of us who have any religion or none at all. So it's not prescriptive, shuffling paper coming up. It's not prescriptive, but it's supportive of anyone and everyone who is fae, who has felt apologetic for being that way naturally. So I really feel that this book brings comfort and encouragement to those of us who have felt we don't fully belong in this reality and who have a nostalgia or a yearning for another world or another place and another time or a way of being that we can't really articulate. It's something we feel deeply, but we can't necessarily find the words for it. And Rae is a bridge builder in that she does find those words and she does it magnificently well. And in this respect, this book really connects to what I'm hoping to do in my next book. I've been compiling notes for my next book for about 3 years now, And it's very much going to be a guide for the edge walker or the wild spirit that hopefully will bring reassurance and companionship for those many of us, probably talking to some of you that are watching now, who feel marginalised and probably in some cases even ostracised because of our inherent eccentricity, our feyness, our otherworldliness, just our wild nature. And so I was really pleased, but not at all surprised, that this latest book by Rae is also passionately about us rejoicing in that nature, in our feyness, and to be glad that we are those wild misfit mystic selves. But Rae's book doesn't just focus on that. It offers us a way of working with Faerie, with the Fae themselves, and with connecting with our unseen mentors and companions. So in that, it is a how-to book. It really does tell us how we can go about doing this if we so wish. But it backs it up, as always, with Rae's work, with plenty of personal examples to prove, and I know this to be a fact, that Rae herself walks her own talk. And that is really important, isn't it? She always backs up her theory with stories of how it's worked for her in her own life. And she doesn't practice what she preaches because she doesn't preach. She just inspires, just by her turn of phrase, her language, by her generous sharing, and through her guidance, which is always very lyrical and beautiful. And she is kind enough to offer us the practical ways that she connects herself to the fairy realms and how she works with those every day and how she lives as a fae being herself. What I particularly enjoyed, I'm going to here's me with my usual brilliant planning. I'm going to have to quickly move that over there. Hey, okay, what I particularly enjoyed about this book was the section about portals, which I will read to you just very quickly now. I'm aware that we don't want to make this video very long. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Right, so this is just a small reading from the section about portals in the book. I'm just going to paraphrase the first bit. This world is a parallel dimension of Faerie. It sounds very strange to put it like that, but to those who live in the other world, this is a parallel dimension. Either way, there are similarities and a kind of mirroring, which tends to mean that the landscapes of any area may be found in the other world. However, it will not necessarily mean exact replication. For one thing, all fairy lore tells us time runs differently there. This means that if you go through a portal in London, you may not find yourself in the present-day city, but perhaps in the same location a few hundred years ago. And even then, you would not walk through the London of, say, 1816. It is well known that those who live in the other world can shift shape, and the places can alter as well. The laws that determine how and why this happens are natural ones. They are laws of natural magic, and they revolve around the links between consciousness and form. Before I just read any more of that book, I wanted to say, yet again, how this struck a chord with me, because the place where I'm currently staying has got a well-renowned portal right in the middle of the city, and it's fascinated me. It used to fascinate my mum too, but it's a well-documented thing that right in the heart of the city, next to the train station, there is a slipway, a passageway that connects where the train station is to a road which has been there for many years. And people have walked down that slipway and come out into the road and found themselves in another place. The same place, as Rae just explained more eloquently, I'm going to here. It's the same place, but it's not the same place. It looks like it's from another era, and though you couldn't pinpoint it to exactly it's that year, perhaps, it definitely isn't of the age that person walked from the train station. They left one era and they entered another, but the street is the same. Basically, in its structure, it appears to be the same, although the shock of this happening to so many people probably doesn't allow them to take in those details that they would be normally taking in. because how bewildering is it to walk down a slipway in a city going somewhere and come out in something that looks basically the same but isn't. People are dressed differently, there are different vehicles going past, the shops are different, everything's different, but it's right in the heart of the city, in what would be considered, it's not out in the middle of the countryside, it's not somewhere that's considered to be particularly sacred, it's just in the heart of everyday life, and that happens, and it's well documented here. And I haven't had experience of that, but I have had experience of a portal, and unfortunately it was at the most predictable and cliched place of Stonehenge, which at the time I'd never been to before. But this experience was so bizarre and so unsettling and so unlike what anybody else seems to have had there, that it's actually been in 2 other published books, this story of mine that happened to me in 1990, I think it was. I featured it in one of my books, but it's actually been in 2 other people's books as well, because it is so odd. Now, I would really, slight tangent alert here, I'd really like to make a video about that as soon as possible. Would you be interested? I feel very excited about the way I could share that with you, because it's just so bizarre. Anyway, I don't want to go on about me, this is not about me, but would you like me to make a video about that portal experience of another reality? I would really like to. Not that I want to make self-indulgent videos, but let me know if that would be okay with you. Anyway, back to the case in point, which is Rae's wonderful book. So I'm just going to read a little bit more about the portal that she experienced. What I found when I was walking physically, what I found when I once walked physically through a portal in Somerset in the UK was a very lovely Somerset landscape, not of the present day, but as it may have looked in the 19th century. I entered through a yard of an old disused factory that used to make furniture stuffed with horsehair. I didn't know it at the time, but the business had collapsed in the 1920s. Its workshops have long since been converted and modernised and are now cottages. But at the time, I merely thought I was going for a walk, exploring the edge of a small town that was then unknown to me. I had no previous knowledge of the area, and so I had no idea what it should have looked like in the 21st century. A few months before, I had asked my familiar, or guiding spirit, to help me walk right into the other world, and he said that he would when the time was right. I'd forgotten about it for quite a while. It certainly had not been on my mind when I'd gone for this particular walk. So when he told me what was happening, I didn't really believe him. On the far side of the yard was a low barrier. It was just a thin strip of wood screwed into a post at one end and padlocked at the other. The paint was chipped and very old, dirty cream paint. Beyond it was a rough cart track. I stepped over. Now I was in the most beautiful countryside imaginable. Fields sloped gently away into a small valley on my left, and then rose in folds and clefts, which held many trees. Everywhere the small fields were shaped by contours of the land and by history, and were bounded by elder, hazel, hawthorn, interspersed with ash and oak, and perhaps elm, all growing raggedly. It was that irregular and ethereal patchwork of fields fading into the haze of far-off hills that made rural England what it is. And not a mobile phone tower in sight. No barbed wire, no metal gates, no takeaway food cartons in the hedge, no electric cable, and no sign of modern roads or buildings. Even now, very occasionally, you can still find such unspoilt places, so I didn't believe my familiar spirit when he said that we'd just stepped through a portal. To my left, I saw the barley sugar twist chimneys of an old house surrounded by tall trees. Its grounds were slim towers built of white stone that were patterned by lichen. Later on, when researching the town's museum, I found that there had been a mansion named Florida Place where I had walked, but it was destroyed by fire in 1888. I could go on, but that just gives you a sample of Rae's writing, which is absolutely evocative, grounded. Yeah, so there's a little sample. Now, with a little bit more shuffling, what am I going to say next? Yes. Why do I love this book? It's not just because it references poets like Edward Thomas and mystics like William Blake, which of course are bonuses, but because it is so refreshingly open and it's uplifting and it's gentle. Rae isn't trying to foist another belief system on us. She's sharing and offering us gentle support as we investigate other levels of reality safely, because she's a very, very experienced practitioner, and she tells us how to do things properly with her experience, with her background of many years of working herself. So she's using her skill to reintroduce us to what we already know at a deep level. That's her talent, one of her many. To be balanced, in the interest of balance, are there any downsides for me? Well, only personally, and these are tiny little things that I just feel I have to include so that I'm not just seeming to you like I'm being, biased. Tiny things. So I personally don't like the notion of a fairy queen or a fairy king, because as an anarchist, a natural anarchist, and that's anarchy, meaning no rulers. It's not about chaos, it's about personal autonomy, personal sovereignty. So the idea of having the idea of having a king or queen of anything does not sit terribly well with me. But I can, I know why Rae's saying it, I know why she thinks that, and that's, it's fine. It's just that doesn't sit well with me. I don't know whether it will with you. That's just me, but I'm doing this review, so I have to inject a little bit of my own personality into it. And so I find those concepts of monarchy to be unhelpful personally. And also, tiny thing again, Rae mentions the traditional practice of offering the fairy beings cream or honey. Now, obviously, those things don't sit very well with me either, because of my vegan nature, and those things cause exploitation to our creature kin. But they are traditional, and Rae always refers to the traditional practices. So they are minute things, aren't they? But I'm just mentioning them, just in anyway, sorry. Yes. So, yeah. The other things that I don't like are nothing to do with Rae's work whatsoever. They are to do with the publisher, not Rae's work. And I think that Robert Hale has not done Rae a great service with the actual production of this book, because you might disagree. Please let me know if you disagree. But to me, this cover is just one of those kind of photo compilation things. Look at the trees, it's all kind of regimented, and there's nothing flowing in it really. I mean, I know there's a path going through it, but the path looks like it's made out of block paving or something. There is no evidence of anything growing through it. Can you see that? I don't know, it's just very cookie cutterish bit of graphic design that does not serve this book well at all, in my view, as an artist. I think it should have been much more fluid, much more naturalistic, and not just look like a load of regimented trees with a regimented path and a regimented bit block paving. But that's just me. What do you think? It certainly doesn't detract from the book at all, but they could have done a better job for her. I wish they had. I feel a bit cross on her behalf on that one. Also, the quality of the paper is not good. It is very rough, and as you can see, I haven't had this book very long at all, but it is also going yellow down the sides. And that, Robert Hale Publishing, makes me very sad for Rae, who has obviously worked very, very hard, as she always does, to make this the best possible book she can do for us, and you did not serve her well. So, boo hiss for that. Right, but moving on. Yes. Where am I? Yes, so Rae deserves better, and you might not, let's go, you might not agree with everything that she's written, and that's fine, because it's good that this work is gently challenging. It's not just the same old, and you can dip into it. You can just dip into it for a nugget of wisdom, and believe me, you'll find many of them, or you'll find a poetic description. You'll find treasure wherever you look in this book. Or you can read it from cover to cover as a whole and use it throughout the rest of your life as a valuable guidebook. And it will help you understand how our ancestors would have related to the fairy, to the fae, and to the other world just naturally as part of their everyday experience, and how beneficial that can be to us today. Because, let's face it, modern society has relegated such natural reactions to the realms of superstition. It was the superstitions of unenlightened peasants. But Rae reclaims that for us, and she gives us her unique magical touch and her own slant on it, and offers so much of herself. It's not just a dry telling, it's got so much of Rae in it, and that is a precious thing. And it's brave, it's very brave as well as charming. Rae's never shy of expressing new ideas and material. She doesn't retread old ground, she doesn't rehash her old things just for the sake of sales. This was a brave book. It steps it steps further, and a lot of people might not want to follow Rae where she's gone there, but I really encourage you to do so. In her life as a person and in her work, Rae is unapologetic and unafraid of who she is and of what she does. And very quickly, just as I was coming to the conclusion of making my notes, I found in a book about Vivienne Westwood, the designer who I'm reading. It always happens, these bits of synchronicity, when I'm making a video. I found this, I'm going to paraphrase this quote by Vivienne Westwood's son Joe, and it really refers to Rae. I could have written it about Rae. This is classic Rae. He's talking about Vivienne Westwood. I'm replacing it with Rae. This is classic Rae. She has this disarming honesty about her. It just comes out. There's no hidden agenda. It's just out. She's like that. She's got this naive quality about her, very childlike quality, but it's so charming and truthful. Charming and devastatingly truthful, because I think that quality shows a unique strength. She has a way of thinking things through that can get to the heart of the matter. So that's what was said about Vivienne Westwood, but I think it applies to Rae, absolutely. So whether you agree with her or not, she works unfailingly, Rae does, for the good of the all, and her vision and her teachings are always life-enhancing. I think, regardless of what I think of the cover, the contents of this book is absolutely vital. We need this book today, and I really hope you will appreciate it if you buy it. I certainly do, and it's been an honour to share it with you and to maybe introduce you to Rae's work. I certainly hope that you will go and check it out. I just hope that I've conveyed its worth and done it justice. So that is enough for me for now. My next videos will be about catch-ups and everyday enchantment tarot and so forth and so on. But would it be okay with you if I made one about my Stonehenge portal experience, because I've just talked about it, and as soon as I talked about it I got really excited. So would you like to hear about that? Please let me know what you'd like to hear about. Let me know if this was useful, and for now, take care of yourselves and of all other beings you encounter, and I send you lots of love and my immense gratitude for you taking the time to watch this long video. Thank you, and hope to see you again soon. Please comment. Thank you so much. Bye bye.